Good evening, everyone. From the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., I'm Kelly Wright. Thank you for joining us as we spend this next hour together. And I do sincerely hope that wherever you are, you're taking care of yourself and your families and that you're safe and well. My opening observation as I stand here in front of the Lincoln Memorial is this. 40 of 50 states have now seen a spike in coronavirus cases. Therefore, this Independence Day weekend is going to be a 4th of July like no other. And what kind of fireworks will be set off? Well, there's the fireworks of political controversy over whether to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. And should beaches be open or should they be closed? Should bars be open or should they be closed? And how will we celebrate around the picnic table or the barbecue with our friends and our loved ones as we usually did in the past? This will not be your traditional 4th of July, yet it's important that we realize that we are in this together, and together we can fight against this coronavirus that's spreading around the nation. And let's be careful out there, because on Thursday, we witnessed a staggering number of 52,000 cases of COVID-19 in one single day. So in my opening observations, a word of caution. Celebrate the 4th of July, but do it wisely, do it safely, and as public health experts have told us to do, make sure you take care of yourself and each other. As we begin to celebrate this Independence Day, let's reflect on history because of its significance to today and what we're going through beyond the coronavirus, but also the racial divide in our country. On July 5th, 1852, Frederick Douglass gave a keynote address at an Independence Day celebration and asked, "What to the slave is the 4th of July?" Douglass, the great abolitionist, went on to praise and offer respects for the signers of the Declaration of Independence for their commitment to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But he stated this, "I say it with a sad sense of the disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us." Talking about disparities then, as we're talking about disparities today. He also stated this, "Where justice is denied, where poverty is enforced, where ignorance prevails, and where any one class is made to feel that society is an organized conspiracy to oppress, rob, and degrade them, neither persons nor property will be safe." Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist. My first guest talking about that and a myriad of other things is civil rights attorney Mark Harris. He's also a member of the Ben Crump Law Firm. He joins us now with his take and his view of Independence Day 2020.
Kelly, I too am a proud American. I don't want anybody to make any mistake about how committed I am to this country. My forebears gave blood for this country. My father was a commander in the Navy. My father-in-law was a sergeant major in the Air Force. I am a proud beneficiary of the ultimate sacrifice that each of them made on behalf of our country. Having said that, the words of Frederick Douglass in 1852 have resonated in our family every year during the 4th of July, and they have a special resonance this year. Frederick Douglass in 1852, when asked the question, what it means to have been basically a slave and what it means to be a slave during our national celebration of independence, kind of set the record straight. And I could quote him, but I'm going to paraphrase. He basically said that America sets wonderful, lofty, aspirational goals: life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness for everyone. All of the things that we have heard and been taught over and over again about what this country aspires to haven't played out in terms of the Black community. They didn't play out pre-Emancipation Proclamation, and they sure haven't played out since the Emancipation Proclamation. So this year, unlike other years, where I would celebrate America's independence, the 4th of July, just like every other proud American, with fireworks and family gatherings and the rest, when you layer in what you made reference to, the coronavirus, we can't have our family here. We're the house that invites everybody in for 4th of July. We have watermelon, we have barbecue, we play dominoes, we play bid whist. Some of us play bid whist better than others. but it's our house that is the one. We can't do that this year. But even in those times, we would always read what Frederick Douglass had to say about July 4th. This year, we won't celebrate, both because of Corona, but also because I don't want to be hypocritical. I can't set off fireworks and sparklers celebrating the 4th of July, American Independence, so-called American Independence Day, and know that something is happening in this country on a consistent basis that America tries to deny. And that's the murder, the actual assassination of many members of the Black community through law enforcement.
That's pretty deep. So how will you celebrate it?
We're going to, as we do every year, read the words of Frederick Douglass. We're going to post it on our social media to remind our community of what Frederick Douglass said about the 4th of July. We're going to continue to try to have the names of avowed racists removed from American institutions. Interestingly, and this had always bothered me, the Russell office building, which houses one of the groups of congressional members in Washington, D.C., was named after Richard Russell. Richard Russell was an avowed racist. He was such a deep racist that even Lyndon Baines Johnson, former President Johnson, would have his brow furrowed by some of the things that Dick Russell did and said. It was an interesting thing because Johnson, of course, came from the segregated South from Texas, changed his perspective over time, as we're all aware of, and was one of the most, in my opinion, he was the biggest president supportive of African-American rights through the Civil Rights Act and other bills that he signed, 64, 65. But Dickie Russell was his mentor. And that person who was an avowed racist never changed his perspective. His name adorns the Russell House office building. It should be removed. And we'll try over this weekend to participate in those efforts to do that. Roger Taney, the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who wrote the Dred Scott decision, who said that African Americans were only worth 3/5 of a human being, who said that the African American, he said the Black man has no rights a white man need recognize. His bust, his statue is in the US Capitol. It needs to be removed. So that's what we'll be doing over this so-called holiday, is really trying to continue to fight the good fight.
So joining me now is Paul Sequence Ferguson. He is a former member of the United States Army. He served for 13 years. And Paul is a musician extraordinaire. And I should give full disclosure, the theme song of this show is actually composed and performed by Paul Sequence Ferguson. Paul, thanks for joining us today on this special look at the 4th of July, Independence Day. So since it's tomorrow, the Independence Day, happy 4th of July to you.
Oh, the same to you. And I'm really happy to be here. Feels like we're back again on the road.
You're quite a musical talent, but you have many other talents. But I want to first start off with the fact that you've given so much to this country, 13 years of military service. What was that experience like?
Well, it started back in the 70s, tail end of Vietnam. And of course, it's a different army back then compared to the army now. A lot stricter. And a lot of the troops, as far as color, weren't really getting some of the music that they wanted to hear. And once we formed a band, I formed a band in Europe and would perform for these soldiers, mountainous areas, Ansbach, Grafenberg, you might remember some of those names.
I do remember them.
I mean, it would blow my mind away because I would see grown men crying when we're finished with the show and getting ready to leave. They wouldn't want us to leave because they didn't get a chance to hear this music from back home, back in the world, as we used to call it. So it's completely different than the Army now. Now everybody has iPads and they have the internet. And
this is a different kind of 4th of July too, because we're facing COVID-19.
Yes.
We're still in the middle of that, and it's spreading to so many states and rising. And then we're also dealing with a racial virus as well, as we cross through a racial divide, something that I didn't anticipate we would have in the 21st century, yet it's here. And we're finding that young people, black and white, older people, black and white, brown and yellow, they're all dealing with it and trying to, those who are really conscientious about it, trying to come together to actually celebrate this nation as the United States, not the divided states. Having served in the military and still actively engaged in people's lives, what do you think about this current time that we're living in?
Well, I think it's an awakening. In my personal opinion, it's awakening. A lot of things have come to the front that were hidden in the back. We might have known they were there, but they were covered over. Now it's to the front. And I think it's also an opportunity for this country, for the world, in fact, to make certain things right. We know what's wrong on both sides. And I think we need to come together seriously, not come together with just this, come together with this, and the heart. And really seriously sit down and talk and see what we can do to correct some of these wrongs that are instilled in generations. It's been passed on, and it affects the mind, and it also affects the family itself. So I say this is a chance, maybe a once in a lifetime chance for this country, for our leaders, for our people to come together and really sit down honestly and do something to correct this, because we're not going backwards, we're going forward. And before you know it, it'll be 2030. And we don't want to have this same thing continually going. It's been how many years? 400 years now?
Yeah.
Or more?
Yeah.
We need to stop. It needs to, it will. I know it will someday. I don't know when, but I think we need to try our best with this opportunity we have to do something.
I agree with you wholeheartedly that we need to keep on trying to have this beloved society and realize that we are all part of one humanity and we have to come together and work together. Paul, I'd like you to stay with me because after the break, I want to come back and talk to you about your music, your service to veterans, and we'll talk more about all the things that you're hoping to do in the coming months and years as you continue to develop your music and so many other things helping veterans. I'm talking to Paul Sequence Ferguson. We'll be back with more right after the break. Let me ask you a question, Paul. Why did you get out of the Army and then ultimately create Yes We Care? And tell me about this program that seeks to help veterans.
I enjoyed the Army for a couple of years. I enjoyed it. The discipline was great. The opportunity to travel around the world um, with no money out of your pocket for flights and so forth was great. And the camaraderie that you would get with other soldiers, beautiful thing. But after the 13 years, and I said, I need to do something else with my life now, something else. I got to do something. I have to give back in a way to do something. So a little bit after that, I got cancer, prostate cancer at age of what was it, 40? I think it was 40 or 43, something around that area. And I had my regular fight, 7 years with the service, trying to get them to acknowledge they gave me this cancer. It took 7 years for that to happen, but it happened. And while my stay in the hospital, I learned so many things. I learned that the way you live your life, when you're in that hospital bed and you can't do anything but stay in that bed, in that room, the only thing really that you have is here. And if whatever life you've lived, whatever you've done, you can't help but start going back and thinking. So if you've done anything that was not so great, it's there all over again, playing in your soul, in your mind. And I went through that, and I saw other people there. No one came to visit them, no soldiers, no one came to visit, no family. And I said, I've got to do something. I said, Lord, if I can get out of here, because they gave me, 2.5 years to live or die. I said, if I can get out of here, I'm going to do something. And we came up with the foundation called YesWeCare.net. Yes, we care. That's where it started back in, no, was it 2006 when we incorporated. From that point on, I did everything I could possibly do to help others, as far as the veterans are concerned, children with cancer, and the homeless.
You still help out veterans wherever you go. Yes, We Care predominantly has been operated in the Long Island, New York area. Um, and you've reached out to veterans of all colors, of all stripes. Uh, and you've actually, I've seen you go into the hospitals and actually help them with music therapy. Well, how does music provide that extra touch to a veteran who's hospitalized? Because during this 4th of July weekend, many people will forget about veterans and forget about the fact that they're in
Mm.
a hospital. They can't get up, they can't get out, and no one's visiting them. So, how does your music help them, and what does that do to you to know that you're helping them?
Outstanding question, Kelly. I'll give a little story for that one too. I did a concert at a place, I think it was in Northport, VA. That was in Long Island, New York, I think it was, yes. There was a young man there. He was blind. He had the helmet on because sometimes he's so blind he could hit his head, whatever, and a stick. And I was playing the show, and most of the other veterans there were dancing and nodding their head, the ones that can move, and having a great time. And I looked at him, and he was just, his eyes were closed, and he was just here. He was this, well, he was just this way. I said, ah. So I went over to him. I even have a picture of this. I took the guitar, and I placed the neck of the guitar on his helmet. And the vibrations of me playing went through the helmet into, I guess, through his bone connection and whatever. His whole face just completely lit up. Tears came down. And just looking at this blind person, the way he forgot he was blind, he forgot everything. When I saw that, it gave me even more strength to know that this music that I'm doing and how I'm addressing the veterans as one of their brothers also is affecting them. It's giving them hope. It's also giving them strength. And it's also giving them a way of connecting with the outer world, meaning outside of the hospital, and also connecting with another veteran. And they come up to me and after the show, hug me, hold my hand, and say, "Thank you so much." Now you can tell when somebody is telling you, "Oh, thank you so much," or when somebody said, "Thank you so much," and you know the difference between how impactful it is for that person. So music is very, very important to our veterans, just to anyone in general in the hospitals. And I'll do a shameless plug. The relaxation DVDs and CDs that I create does even more work. I have some beautiful stories one day. I'll tell you how it saved lives and helped people with their lives before they passed on.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much post-traumatic stress syndrome out here, so it's important that you're doing that, providing that music relaxation therapy. I want to ask you. We're going to take a break. When I come back, I want to ask you about the CDs that you've created to help out people, and you've brought in a lot of jazz stars, notable
Oh, yeah.
stars, to work on those CDs to send to veterans and to use as a fundraiser for Yes We Care. Talking to Paul Sequence Ferguson, Army veteran. He's celebrating the 4th of July by giving back to veterans all across the United States, and he's been recognized. We'll come back and talk more about that as well after the break. Welcome back to the program. I'm talking to Paul Sequence Ferguson, and if you have not heard his music, well, actually, you have heard. If you watch this show continually on this program on the Black News Channel, the Kelly Wright Show, at the top of the show is that really nice music, and Paul Sequence Ferguson is the creator of that song. He's the composer, the producer, extraordinary, who put it all together. Thank you for that, Paul, and thank you for letting us use that song. I want to ask you, you've been able to work with a whole group of top musicians. I'm looking behind you on your wall in your studio, and you've got the great Diana Ross there. I know that you served as her bodyguard for a while, but then you've also gone on to work for with rather a lot of stars that have come together collectively to help you on your CD project for Yes We Care. Tell me about that CD.
First CD we did was Yes We Care Charity Volume 1. I just humbly went out and I asked my friends in the business. I actually think about it, in this day and age, didn't have to really sign anything, didn't have any paperwork. It was something from the heart. You don't see that too many times. And I asked them, and everyone said, definitely, Paul, I will be there, whatever you need. I asked Mr. George Duke. He said, hold on a moment, let me finish my CD here. I'll do what I can do. Well, he never really got a chance to do it. He passed away. But fortunately, his bass player, Michael Manson, has a song that he's on that they did together, and they donated that to the charity. So that's going to be on the second one we're working on now. Some of the names that are on there, first CD, let's see, Melba Moore, Ronnie Jordan, Najee, Paul Castle, Dave Valentine, the flute player, he passed. He's on there. My great friend who just passed, it touches my heart. Onaji Allen Guns, he's on there also. A host of people. And the second one we're working on now is it's about almost done. I have Mr. Bob James. He's opening the CD. You're going to be on there, of course. Again, we have Najee. Just so many names.
A lot
And
of good names to put together. And the interesting thing about Bob James is that Bob James has thanked a lot of black musicians for helping him get his start in his defense of Black Lives Matter. So it's good to know that there are musicians that are coming together with you for this worthy cause, Yes We Care, which is a foundation to help veterans. And the former president of the United States acknowledged you and recognized your foundation, Yes We Care. What was it like to receive that letter of recognition from President Barack Obama?
Wow, that's what it was like. Wow. First ever African American president, and then to get a letter from him, speechless. It's something that's going to be passed down from my generation continually. And I can't go on without saying thank you to two people that also was in the works in getting that completed, Ms. Fran Petito, and also like to thank Gene Fontana also, all their help. And that letter is on the wall downstairs. And every time I would see certain things on TV, on rest and so forth, everything that's going on, I pass by and I stop and I would actually read it again. And I said to myself always, I wonder if we'll ever have this opportunity again, another African American president again. And I'm hopeful that that will happen. It might be a woman, great. But change is coming, Kelly, it's coming. And I'm hoping for more diversity in this country.
All right, Paul Sequence Ferguson, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, and I appreciate you having me on your show. I've always looked forward to being with you, performing with you when we do, and this right here just made my entire year. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you for that. God bless you, and happy 4th of July to you and your lovely wife, Anna. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're coming back with more after this. I want to talk about service. This is a show that's dedicated to the men and women who have served in the United States military, and oftentimes they are engaged in harm's way. I've covered soldiers on the battlefields in Iraq. I know what they go through, And so the gentleman I'm going to introduce to you now has served in the military for 32 years, and he's been on the program before. He's international best-selling author, Sergeant Major retired Keith L. Craig. He's also an executive for the Disney Corporation, but more importantly, he's a humble servant to the people of this great nation called America. Sergeant Major Craig, thanks for being on the program. Once again, it's a delight to have you.
Kelly, thank you for having me. Appreciate it very much.
In your book, Serving to Lead, I want to read a quote that you mentioned in this book. You said, serving to lead is about realizing aspirations. It's also about accomplishing your dreams and becoming the best leader you can be. I like that because it kind of echoes what the Army used to have as a jingle. If you remember Luther Vandross singing, "Be all that you can be in the Army," and certainly you started doing that. Tell me what it was like, though, for you growing up in Alabama and then deciding to make a military career.
Well, obviously, I came from a place that humble beginnings, so it was pretty tough. But I was an athlete in Alabama and managed to garner a couple of scholarships that led to me having options as I got ready to leave the nest, if you would. But unfortunately, my mom and I were kind of by ourselves, so I had to forego the opportunity to go to college to play college football. And in turn, I went to the military in 1984. And there is where I spoke to a recruiter, recruiter stories. I asked to get a job as a computer operator, and that turned out to be a monitor programmer for a nuclear weapon called the Lance missile.
And so when you got into this program, you went on to do a lot in the military. It took you far away from home, and you began leading people and learning all the skills about leadership. And you discovered that you could actually do this, and you work with some of the best generals that we know of, the most notable generals in today's Army. Tell me about that, please.
Well, it was always an honor. When I left home not knowing what leadership was, what I told myself was I was going to become the best leader that I could become. And that was going to happen by me looking at other people that were leaders and borrowing things from them. Some would say, getting tools from them to put into my own tool bag. And therefore, I would form my own leadership philosophy and psychology around that with the understanding how important leadership is to everybody, to everyone.
That's fantastic. And as a result of that, you benefited individually, and then you also helped others benefit from it. And one of those is going to join us here. I see that she's on the line waiting to be admitted to our conversation. And I understand that she's also the person who influenced you to write this book. And that is your wonderful daughter, Nikessa Craig, who joins us right now. Nikessa, good of you to join us. I don't know if your father was aware that you were going to be in on this conversation, but
Hello, I was not.
He told me not to tell you.
I'm surprised.
we're coming back with more after the break. Nikessa, your father is such a humble man, but he's a highly decorated veteran of the United States Army, serving for 32 years. And I was just talking to him about his leadership role and how his leadership role caused him to benefit individually as well as collectively, because he has spread the knowledge around, and he poured a lot of that into you, because you're a licensed clinical social worker operating in Virginia. Your dad is now an executive for Disney out in Los Angeles. I just want to ask you that your father's service to this country and your father's service to you as a leader and as a mentor and as daddy, what's that been like for you?
I feel like I don't always have the words, and I feel like we don't have enough time. I think a big part of this pandemic has been a lot of us not really sharing our stories. And as someone who lived through so much with you, I was talking to Kelly and I realized you're just dad to me. I know you have the accolades, but oftentimes when I talk to you, when I see you, you're just dad. And so I'm often reminded when I meet people who know you, who you are. Some are scared of you and some say you changed their lives. But you've just always been dad to me. And so of course I'm proud. I feel like that leadership definitely trickled down as a small business owner. There was no one else who's encouraged me more to take on those pursuits. And there's no one else in my life who's ever told me to dream bigger, to do more, to keep going. So for me, it's been instrumental in the development of me as a woman, as a Black woman, right? And also as a business owner and as someone who cares for other people for a living.
I am so touched by that. And Keith, I know that you're surprised by all this, but the reason why I'm surprised, why I really wanted to surprise you with this is because it's just great to see how your leadership is not only being distributed throughout the world through this wonderful book called Serving to Lead, but it's also downloadable and visible and virtual in the life of your daughter. And a lot of times we can go far around the world and influence everybody around us. But if it doesn't start at home, it doesn't really matter as much. So I put you on the spot there, Keith, and I just wanted to do that because she is one of your strongest allies, no doubt, and that's Nikessa Craig. I wanted to ask you, Keith, the service that you did in combat, is it something that you've talked about a lot? Because I heard your daughter say people are scared of you. That's the sergeant major coming out.
No, I haven't talked about it much. Again, with her encouragement, I decided to put my story, in a book. But always being the guy that came from small, humble beginnings, I always thought that nobody really cares. I've done the same thing that any other American would have done for their country, and while doing that, taking care of their brothers in arms. So I never thought it to be special. It was just my job to do what I've done.
Still ahead, much more to come on The Kelly Wright Show after this. What's your message to America right now? Because we're going through a very difficult time. We have this COVID-19 pandemic, we have this racial divide, and we have all kinds of things that are being said about our military in terms of them being in harm's way, and people, the allegation is that Russia tried to actually pay off Taliban members and put a bounty on the heads of our war fighters. And I've been to Iraq, and I saw what our men and women did on the combat field, and how they were basically peace warriors. They were there to broker peace, and I saw little children and adults running up to them saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." We don't hear enough, and we don't see enough of those stories about the men and women like yourself who really sacrificed so much of their personal lives so that we would be free.
My message is that to realize that you are entitled to great leadership. And if you are in a situation where you don't see that leadership that you feel that you deserve, become the leader that you want others to emulate, and also become the change that you would like to see, others make. Get out in those communities and be the community leaders. Speak to your local politicians about changes that you would like to see in your community. Just become the change that you would like to see, and just have the philosophy yourself. If it's to be, it's up to me. And stop looking left and right for somebody else to come save you, get out there in your community and save yourself along with your brothers and sisters.
That will, not only will that teach, but that will preach, my brother. That's good for a Sunday morning sermon. Start with the person in the mirror and don't look to the left or look to the right. If I can add to that, just look to God. He'll give you the strength you need to overcome anything that you come up against, and certainly you've done that throughout your life. Uh, this military career. The reason why I keep talking about it is for the aforementioned reasons that I just talked about, and that's the fact that we're not appreciating our service members enough. And I just want to say that I appreciate you. That was the other reason why I enjoyed the idea of Nikesa coming on, because what you sacrificed on the battlefield and what you sacrificed and what you told me the other day is that a lot of times when you're serving in today's military, you spend so much time away from home, and yet you've been able to have this great relationship with your daughter. And I think it's good that we see daddy's girl and dad in alignment with each other and agreement with each other to do this great thing, this great book called Serving to Lead. Nikesa, help me out here. You're the licensed clinical social worker. Am I right or am I right?
No, you are absolutely right. I think that um, the message he just gave you was the same messaging he was giving me. I can tell you that I remember, and I don't know if you remember this, Dad, but I could not have been more than 10. Maybe I was around third grade, and I brought home some grades that weren't up to par. So Kelly, these weren't bad grades, right? But these were sergeant major grades. And so when you have those sort of expectations, you already know that there's going to need to be a conversation. And so for me, I would try to, go to bed early, come home and maybe go to sleep at 4 o'clock so you can miss, the conversation. But that time I wasn't able to escape. And my dad asked, like, what's going on? Just having that dialogue, not accusing me of anything, but just saying, what's actually happening? Long story short, I think I had my excuses ready. My excuse was like, well, so and so didn't do so great either. Like, it was a real rough week for us, right? And I always remember my dad said, Nikisa Craig is going to have to work harder. You are not going to be able to measure yourself against your peers, other students. So I don't want to hear about what so and so did. I'm concerned about you. And so just as a very small example, it started from a young age, but that's something that's really stuck with me. And I think that's important for families and for service family professionals also to really take stock of. It's the importance of setting expectations. But more importantly, I think the importance of actually being that model. And so when I look back through the course of my life, that's what, Dad, you've been to me, that model of those values.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Keith, you have not forgotten the military, even in your professional career. You're there with Disney. You're the head of distribution, the sales manager there. And yet you have reached out with the Salute program, the Heroes program, to help veterans coming out of the military. Tell me what keeps you so actively engaged and actively caring for the men and women who have proudly worn the military uniform of the United States?
Um, just understanding that transition is difficult, it's hard. And even someone such as myself who served 32 years, I had to admit to myself, I have been institutionalized. So I'm used to having top cover, if you will. But when you get out here in this world, there is no top cover. There is no safety net. There is no installation. So I put the onus on myself to become a safety net for the guys, a sergeant major, to be a sergeant major always for everybody who needs me. So I really mean serving to lead. You definitely have to be able to be of service to yourself. And I really take selfless service to heart.
And to both of you, I just say, keep on keeping on. Stand strong in the faith. And when we come up against it, it's good to know that there are leaders like you can help us through the racial divide, the political divide, and still hold true to our values of being godly, being patriotic, and being a family. After all, that's what Dr. King talked about, having a beloved community where we can sit down at that table of brotherhood and break bread together like we're doing now. Thank you for making my Independence Day special by sharing your story, Sergeant Major Keith L. Craig, Disney executive Keith Craig, changing the lives of so many. And I know you're a humble man, so I don't mean to effusively talk about it, but I think your daughter shows the grace that you've been able to maneuver and work with in all of your career. So anytime you want to come on the show, have at it. You're a brother in arms. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Love you both. God bless you both. And thank you for touching me. This is a very, very touching interview. I didn't think it would go this way, but once you get the daughter on there, and I have a daughter too, so trust me, I know what it feels like. God bless you both. And we'll look for him again, because he is the creator and he's the one who's distributing all those great movies. I'll give you some shameless plug if you want to tell us those movies again that you keep on plugging out there that you can be so proud of.
Well, we've had Black Panther, we've had Avengers Endgame, we've had Toy Story, Lion King, name a few. We're coming out next month with Mulan. So the list goes on.
Thank you for a Wakanda moment, brother.
Wakanda forever.
We'll be back with more of the show, this Independence Day special to this. Welcome back, and now for my final word. As you begin to celebrate Independence Day, I hope that you will be safe and well. I hope you will also reflect on the value of our Independence Day, how men and women fought, bled, and died to gain this independence that we hold dear. Behind me is a statue of 3 American soldiers who fought on the battlefields of Vietnam in defense of this nation. They are Black, they are white. And as we struggle with the racial divide that we have in this country, let us hold dear to what this statue is emblematic of. How black, white, brown, yellow, red, we all come together as one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Therefore, let us celebrate this 4th of July, despite the difficulties that we face, by cherishing our freedom, our independence, and being the United States and not the divided states. Hopefully you've been righted, ignited, and united to keep spreading love, freedom, and peace. I'm Kelly Wright. Happy 4th of July, everyone. Good night.
The dream that gives hope to us is as strong as it ever was. United we stand, divided we fall. That's my